Good morning.
Good morning. We are a little late this morning.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I had an eye doctor appointment, so.
But we are here. And because someone had an eye doctor appointment, guess what he actually has?
I actually have my coffee.
It's coffee. So it's actually coffee time with pastors today. We finally did it. It's only been a month.
Did it.
But we thank you for joining us. And I'm going to straighten this a little bit.
There you go.
Nah.
It's fine.
Not much of a difference, but it's all right. You get to see more of our mic at least.
Yeah.
As far as announcements go, hopefully this is a normal week. I don't foresee any significant changes, but
No more hurricanes or anything?
Things could change.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know. But last week was the last week for milk. We do know that.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they show up Thursday morning, which...
No, they're not. They told me they'd call me beforehand.
Okay. So last week was the last week for milk, and we handed out just shy of 4,000 gallons. So that's really cool.
Yeah, we've...
glory sighting that we've had past few months.
Mm-hmm.
And big thank you to those who helped hand out milk, helped unload the truck.
We want to thank...
tie tags.
Yeah, we also want to thank the USDA, the Farmers Program. Thank the government. They paid for this, so...
Essentially, subsidiary.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also thank you to Miss Sherry and Miss Charlotte who cut, hole punched, and ribboned all the tags.
Yeah, and
that's probably not a verb, but you know what I mean.
And they provided a lot of snacks, so we really appreciate that.
Yeah. And good morning grows to you as well. Still technically mornings, at least.
It is.
It is. Also, exciting news. Our directories are here.
Yeah. Finally here. It only took a year.
So they are in the church office. So you can come by and pick those up. If you are not a person who's out and about, that's okay. We can mail them. We can have someone deliver them to you. Just let us know. And we do have a limited number of extras. So if you did not have your picture taken and would like a directory, there are a few available. A few. Not enough for everyone. But we can get that to you if you need it as well. Also, we got the news that Sunday school classes can begin to meet again.
Adult Sunday school classes
can begin to meet again. And just because they can meet, if your group's not comfortable meeting yet, you don't feel like you're forced to, but we'll be contacting the Sunday school teachers this week to kind of figure out and work with them their plans for their particular classes. So if you have questions, you can ask your Sunday school teacher later this week.
Yes.
Give us a chance to call them and talk to them first.
Let us do that.
Yes. When it comes to Sunday school, the classes, when they do meet, will need to be in kind of an open, large space.
Yes, so places like the fellowship hall, the chapel, across the street. We're leaning towards that, having open space, not small enclosed. Like some of the Sunday school rooms. They're very small, and we'll be talking to the leaders about that, and coordinating.
Now, if you're in a class of 2 people, that might change things, but
yeah, we'll work with y'all, but for right now, it's the adult Sunday school classes.
The pandemic
it's like
task force.
Yeah, it's a committee from conference.
Yeah, are the ones who are releasing this information, and they will be getting back to us about.
Keep going.
It's okay.
It's
fine.
Just keep going.
They are the ones who release the information about different regulations, and they are working on the children's and youth information.
And they're keeping us posted.
Yeah, they actually are doing a pretty good job.
We've been receiving a lot of communication, which is good from conference.
Yeah. which is kind of unique, but that's great.
Ooh, Kathy sang an opinion and live from everyone.
Yeah.
It's okay. She's fully ordained. She's like on tenure.
That's why I have tenure and I'm 8 months pregnant.
Yeah, she can say whatever she wants.
Anyways, you just completely distracted me. I don't think I have any other announcements.
That's about it. And if you are missing my Bible study, I am editing the videos and posting them on Facebook and on YouTube. So on YouTube, they're under the Bible study playlist. But I have those stream every Wednesday night.
Or you could join in person on Sunday nights.
Yes, but you have to email me or call church office so we can hook you up.
Yeah. And beginning mid-September, our posting schedule is going to change a little bit. And to incorporate Turbo and shift into youth programming, because we don't know when yet we can meet in person with the kids and youth. So we're doing some virtual stuff with them. But check your cross connections, check your emails. More information about that will be sent out shortly.
Yep.
Okay. So are you ready for scripture?
I'm ready to be grilled and quizzed.
Our scripture yesterday comes to us from Matthew, chapter 16. And it begins midway through chapter 16 and goes through the end of the chapter.
Yep.
And
I'm pulling up the notes right now.
in case I pulled something obscure. But this is the section where Jesus is explaining to the disciples that the Messiah has to go to Jerusalem, suffer, die, and then be raised again. Mm-hmm. And Peter's like, no, you're not doing that.
Yeah, you're not doing that, man. Yeah.
And Jesus rebukes him. And pretty harshly at that.
Oh, it's really bad. It's
worse in... There's sometimes you can't pick up inflections in the English translations that are there in the Greek. But in the Greek, it's pretty harsh.
It's there. You can't see it,
that.
But it's there, man. I got it right here.
Nor can most people read Greek.
No. Unless you were in a fraternity or sorority, but you were pronouncing it wrong. But that's another story. But anyway, yeah.
Anyways, but before this section, I kind of want to talk about the importance of context.
Yes, context is key.
Yes. So before this section, there's half of chapter 16. Mm-hmm. And in that, Jesus is asking, who do people say I am? Who do you say I am? And
well, first they ask who people say the Son of Man is.
Okay.
Then he asks,
who do you say I am?
Mm-hmm.
And Peter says,
you are the Christ.
And then we get to this section, and Jesus says, this is what the Christ must do. And Peter goes,
this is what the suffering servant must do. And he's like, no.
Yeah. So, what were Peter's expectations of what the Christ was supposed to be?
Well, they would see, as far as my research, I really didn't delve into that. But he expected him, was this more of the kind of the zealot interpretation, how it would be the Messiah would come, would conquer the kingdom that was over Israel and then restore everything that way? Is that what you're talking about? Mm-hmm. So there was this interpretation that the Messiah would come, free Israel from their oppressors. So who was over Israel in that time? That would be, who was over Judea? It would be the Roman Empire. Mm-hmm. So there was this viewpoint of that. That's what the Messiah, that's how he would come.
So the Messiah would be a military conqueror.
A military conqueror, make everything right that way. But we know in Scripture that Jesus didn't come that way. No.
And his type of conquering was far different than what Peter had in mind.
Yeah.
The vision was different. Mm-hmm. Peter is looking at his temporary circumstances, looking at the nation of Israel at that time, and seeing that they were an oppressed people, and wanting freedom from that. Whereas Jesus is looking at the whole scale of humanity and seeing how we are an oppressed people due to the bondage of sin and death.
Yeah, he was looking beyond Judea.
Right.
He was looking at the whole world because he wanted to bring everyone back under him.
Yeah. And so after this little section is the Transfiguration.
Yes.
Which is an odd story.
Yes, but we also have Peter saying some really wacky stuff again, and all this stuff's happening. He's like, oh, Lord, let's make 3 altars for you and Moses and Elijah. And I could just see Jesus pulling up a card and just face palming, just going like, oh, no,
So when he says make an altar, is it an altar or is it a house?
It's a dwelling, tabernacle, tent.
So right after this, Jesus goes up on the mountain, is transfigured. Moses, Elijah appear. Peter says, let's build dwellings for y'all here. Do you think that's a way of Peter trying to save Jesus?
You're asking me all these questions I didn't anticipate.
Well,
you looked at my research. What did I go over?
I'm pulling from your research.
She is looking at all the stuff I didn't highlight.
I know. It's there, though.
It is there. I don't know.
I think it's an interesting thought experiment. I don't know how valid it is.
He wanted to protect them, though.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, who wants something to happen to their master?
And so you have him offering to build a dwelling. And if he had a dwelling on a mountain, would he have to go to Jerusalem?
It's just so bizarre when I think about it that way. But yeah.
I mean,
I could see it, but I mean, we could go a lot into they're on a high mountain, they're with God. I mean, we could look at all that.
So there's a lot to the Transfiguration.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot there.
But
I do know with the Transfiguration, that makes sense with verse 28, when it's talking about, when Jesus says, some of y'all will not taste death until you see the Son of Man, was it coming in glory?
Right.
And we think that some of them was the next scene with the Transfiguration, where a few of them, what was it, Peter, James, and John, right?
I didn't write that down.
Yeah, I think it's Peter, James, and John.
Yeah.
Went up, and they saw the Son of Man coming in glory. So
that was another question, verse 28. Saying you won't taste death before seeing the Son of Man come in glory. That's kind of an odd phrase, and all of the disciples are no longer alive.
Yeah, so what
was that
was
about?
Jesus talking about? But then if you could look at, Transfiguration.
So that's why it's important to look at Scripture, not just the verses that you want to study, but look at everything surrounding it.
Yeah, so a good tip is, let's say you're doing your devotion at home, right? And you've got we like to do where we read 1 or 2 verses, or let's say you read a chapter. A good way to practice this is read that chapter, but then read the chapter before it and the chapter after it, and see where it is. Maybe they're in the same setting. Like for example, in our scripture, we believe they're still in Caesarea Philippi, based on the beginning of chapter 16. And then we know where they go in the next scene. They're the Transfiguration. So look at that, and then if you really have a lot of time, see how your chapter, how it looks in the entire book. And then if you really are bored from this pandemic, then see how that book applies to all of Scripture, and then you can go down a rabbit hole if you want.
Well,
so
the main point is, when you're doing your devotions or Scripture study, look at what's surrounding it, because that helps inform your interpretation and your understanding of the story, like in verse 28.
Yeah, because when you read a newspaper article, you don't just read one paragraph in the middle of the article. You read the whole thing,
Most people just read the headline.
Well, read the headline. Oh, no. We're not on Reddit. Anyway, continue.
So, There's some wordplay going on in our scripture.
Oh, yes. There's some fun wordplay that I wanted to preach on, but everyone would have been like, huh?
So let's start with the behind. Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan," referring to Peter.
Yes, what did Peter say? Well, this isn't going to happen to you, Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny because the word rebuke, it's the same word that Jesus used. So when Peter rebukes Jesus, it's the same word that Jesus rebukes Satan with. And then when Jesus turns around, he uses the same word to Peter when he rebuked Satan.
So, repeat that again. Explain that better.
Okay, so when Jesus rebukes Peter, when he rebukes him, he says, "Get behind me, Satan." That is the same word. It's very strong.
Behind.
No, not behind.
Okay.
Rebuke.
Rebuke.
Is
okay.
the same word that he uses. It's the same way he uses when he has the third temptation, when he's in the wilderness with Satan. And he tells him to get behind, to go away. It's the same thing. But when Jesus says, "Get behind me," it's a Greek word. But so we have this word, "get behind me." But then when Jesus talks about if anyone wants to save their life, they must come after me, it's the same word.
As behind.
Behind. This is the same word. Get behind and get after. It's the same word he uses. So it's great because he rebukes one, but then he tells people what they must do to save their life is to come after him. After.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have two thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to follow rebuke first.
Okay.
And then we're going to go after behind, assuming we have time.
Okay, we got 15 minutes.
So the rebuke,
mm-hmm.
that appears in this story,
mm-hmm.
and it appears in the third temptation.
Yes, so Matthew 4.
Yes. So what was that temptation? Just broadly.
The temptation was when the adversary brought Jesus on a high mountain, and he showed all the kingdoms of the earth and said, "I will offer all these kingdoms to you if you bow down and worship me."
Mm-hmm. And what did Jesus say to that?
He said, "It is written, you shall only worship the Lord your God and go away," pretty much.
Yeah.
Go away.
So he's being tempted with power and
mm-hmm.
getting the kingdom
easily.
Right.
But getting earthly kingdoms
easily.
Not his father's kingdom. Yeah, see, it's the whole no pain, no gain. So Peter, right, doesn't want anything bad to happen to Jesus. He wants it to be easy. But that's not what Jesus was called to do. He's the suffering servant. This has been prophesied. He knows he has to go to Jerusalem to suffer at the hands of the people and the elders, and to die and to be resurrected for the sake of humanity. He knows what he has to do. It's a hard mission, but he's accepted. He's doing it for his Father. So, but he's doing it the right way. Mm-hmm. He's not accomplishing his Father's mission through another avenue. That's easy. No pain, no gain.
So that's a correlation there to the third temptation. And here we have Peter tempting Jesus with the exact same
It's
promise.
The same thing. So Jesus has already told Satan to go away once, but now it seems that Peter, who has just described him as the living Christ in the scene before, is now becoming a representative of the adversary of Satan. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty strong. And when Jesus rebukes him, he does it in front of everybody. Mm-hmm. Because at first, what does it say in Scripture? It says it says Peter took Jesus privately aside and rebuked him. But then Jesus turns around and rebukes him
in front of everyone.
In front of everybody.
Yeah. Can't imagine your best friend calling you Satan. Can't be good. Couldn't have been pleasant for Peter.
I remember I told my brother once to get behind me, Satan.
How'd that happen?
I don't remember exactly what happened, but I think he wanted me to do something that I didn't feel was right, and then I said it, but I'm not Jesus, so I wasn't really in the right to say that. I was pretty mean.
Yeah, and what'd your brother say?
Yeah, he wasn't too happy.
Yeah. No one's gonna be happy.
I was like 16, I was a dumb 16-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I knew everything. I still think I know everything, but anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so that's number one. The second wordplay that we have is on behind and following.
Yes, so the word for that they use is hopiso. And it's the same word used, so it can mean behind or after.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first context, Jesus says what? Get behind me, Satan. But then, after he does that, after he says that to Peter, he says, if anyone wants to save their life, they must come after me.
So they have to come behind.
They have to follow.
They have to follow. So that means.
Well, there's still, yeah.
They have to follow the path that Jesus took.
Or
follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be that. Yeah, it could be the same way, because that would make sense with Jesus describing what it would be like for people to follow him, the cost of discipleship. But we could also look at how Jesus is subverting, like, he is making, not only did he make Peter powerless, get behind me, but how also we are under him by coming after him. Mm-hmm. So you could look at it a few different ways, I think.
So it could be submission,
mm-hmm.
Could be the cost of discipleship.
Yeah.
But it all comes down to following Jesus.
Exactly.
And that path of discipleship, for the disciples especially in that time, would have meant to the cross.
Yeah.
Or to punishment, to even not if it wasn't crucifixion, to hardship.
Yeah, it's not an easy...
Persecution. That's what I was trying to think of.
Because I've mentioned it in my sermon the other day. A lot of us, when we look at these verses of how Jesus says, what's the cost of discipleship? What is the cost of following me? To deny oneself, to take up your cross, and to follow him. And we like to water this down. We see it as a metaphor.
To make a sacrifice by giving up Coke.
Yeah, and that... really? You're giving up a Coca-Cola?
Which, admittedly, for some people is hard, but it doesn't carry the weight that these verses carry.
Yeah, it's Jesus is not being metaphorical here. He's being literal. He's saying, look, if you want to follow me, it will be like you carrying your electric chair on your back to go after me, and then where you will die with me. Like, that's what he's saying. He's saying you're carrying your cross. Well, crucifixion back in those times was very common. It wasn't just special with Jesus. Like, people get crucified all the time. That was the standard thing the Roman Empire did. So it would be, once again, like taking your electric chair, taking your cross, and literally dying if you come after Jesus. But we've watered it down so much because I often see, it seems like, well, I'm a Christian. When I'm following Jesus, it'll be uncomfortable. It's much more than that. It's a risk. You might die in this life for following Jesus. And for a lot of our brothers and sisters around the world, this is the reality. Like, you can die. Like in India, when we were going to a prayer house, they said, look, we might be surrounded by a mob and beaten, and we might die. Do you still want to go? Do you ever hear this in America? If this happened in America, people would be... It wouldn't happen. But around the world, following Jesus is a risk. It can be a death sentence, and it's very strong.
Now, in yesterday's sermon, you also mentioned that in the American culture, there are a lot of things that we depend on and that we follow. And some of these things are good things. Yeah,
they're not necessarily bad in themselves.
Yeah. But we tend to follow them instead of Jesus. But if we are free from eating healthy foods, does that mean that I can go out and eat fried foods? If I'm free from one thing, following one thing, doesn't mean I can go and do whatever I want.
Well, no. No, our culture says you can do whatever you want, but we don't subscribe to that as Christians. Everyone says, well, whatever matter, if it makes you happy, but that's not how we see it. There are What am I trying to say?
I'm not entirely sure. Where are you going?
In Christianity, there are models for us to follow Jesus. You know, he calls for our bodies to treat our bodies as temples, you know, to eat right, to not waste it, to be good stewards of the earth, you know, to not be wasteful, there's so many models we are to imitate Christ. And in our world, and especially in our American culture, a lot of times we end up worshiping or trying to save our lives instead of following Jesus. We try to preserve our lives through security, through, you know, building up our mansions here, through depending entirely on it. And there's medicine, and there's nothing wrong with those things. It's just when they become
Idols.
when they become our gods, instead of following Jesus, when we go after them instead of getting behind Jesus, that's when we run into trouble. Because at the end of the day, you know, what did Jesus say? He says you can have it all. You know, you could have the mansions and the respect and the love of the people and your health and prestige and your legacy. But when Jesus comes in final victory, when he judges, and you didn't come after him, what are you going to offer to him for your life? You have nothing to offer to him, because he's the only one who can give you the life through his sacrifice, through his resurrection. And you will end up forfeiting your life, you know.
So it's okay to go to the doctor.
Yes.
It's okay to eat healthy, because that's part of discipleship, is being a good steward.
Yes.
But not... We have a problem with the video.
It's okay, just keep talking.
Okay, so if we just dropped out, at least you can hear us.
Yes, keep
Hopefully.
going. Just keep going.
So it's okay to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's even better to have your thinking prioritized correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So putting Jesus first, and then those things follow after.
Mm-hmm.
And in...
Keep going.
Okay.
Just keep going.
Okay, I'm trying.
Okay.
In the verse 21, which is at the very beginning, it says that Jesus began to teach his disciples that he would have to go to Jerusalem, that he would suffer, that he had to be killed. But what is the last thing that had to happen to the Messiah? That he had to be raised.
Yeah, on the third day.
On the third day. And so even from the beginning of this section, there's this promise.
Yeah, there's a snippet of this. All these things are going to happen,
but
everything will be fine.
Because even though the Messiah will die, the Messiah will live.
Mm-hmm.
So that promise kind of echoes throughout the scripture, that even though we have to make some hard sacrifices, even though the path of discipleship is costly and hard, that's not the end.
Mm-hmm.
The end is new life with Christ. The
Mm-hmm.
end is resurrection. The end is being with God forever.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think you nailed it.
Ah, well, look at that.
I know, right? Kathy doing a good job.
Yeah. So, even though we follow the path of submission, there's freedom in the end. And so, that is what our focus is. Instead of the hardship, our focus is on Jesus.
Exactly.
Instead of the cost of sacrifice,
Mm-hmm.
we're looking at the reward that we have in the promise of new life.
Mm-hmm. And the judge, he will repay us, he will compensate us, and he will give us life.
Mm-hmm.
Life with him. Life in a new heaven and new earth here.
Mm-hmm.
So
those are our thoughts on the scripture from yesterday. Do you have anything else?
no, I think that's about it. We're about to hit our 30-minute mark.
Yeah. So we want to say thank you for joining us. And next Monday is Labor Day, but we'll still do a little...
Are we off?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're off next Monday.
Okay.
But we can still do a 30-minute video.
Oh, yeah, we can do it at home. We'll do it at home.
Not a big deal. But don't come by the office next Monday because you're not going to get anywhere because it's Labor Day.
So we're gonna be stay home.
Next Sunday, our scripture is also from Matthew, and it's the section on how to approach each other in the church when you have issues.
And it's also about loosening and fastening stuff on heaven and earth, so we might talk about that.
So there's a few different avenues that we could go down next week. It will be a surprise.
I might do
Sunday morning what comes out.
I might do the latter because I've never done it before.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to be challenging. Woohoo.
So we thank you for joining us. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to type them out below.
Yes.
Do check.
We do check. And
we might be slow to respond.
And we apologize for the video dropping out, but at least you can keep hearing us.
So, thank you. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.